Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar. Today we're still talking about consumer math and we are covering the part 1 of the course, and it goes over the basic math skills that we use every day in our life. Today we're going to go over the second webinar. If you have not attended the first webinar, it is going to be uploaded to the YouTube channel, and you'll receive a message in your message center giving you the links for those recorded webinars. My name is Miriam. I'm your math instructor here at Penn. I have been part of the team since 2015. I have my Master of Education in Urban Education. I just earned that last year. And I also certified to teach high school math in the state of Pennsylvania. In this webinar, we're going to go over a lesson together. We're going to go over the most challenging topics in calculating percents. Within the webinar, you're going to have some self-check questions for you to complete. They are not graded. They are not required for you to do, but I would encourage you to participate in those questions. These are given to you in the webinar, so you evaluate yourself and see if you have understood the topic that we just spoke about, or maybe you have some questions that you can share. You're able to share your relevant questions in the questions box by typing your questions. The raise your hand feature does not work in our webinars. Registrants, whether you are with us today or could not make it today and attend, will receive a recording of the webinar about a couple of hours after the conclusion of today's webinar. And as I said, we're going to talk today about calculating percent. Today we will look at how can we use the formula that you see in your study unit or lesson, P equals to B times R, in calculating percent. We're going to see that formula from different angles. So we're going to have lots of examples together to go over to understand fully what can we do with that formula to use it to find the percentage, percent, or the base. Also, we're going to look for other problems in percents, like the difference or increase or decrease percent in a certain problem. So we're going to understand how to calculate that as well. And well, just to give you an example on when do we use percents in our life. Whenever you go shopping, you will see a discount for 20%. So the percent is part of our shopping and our grocery shopping that we do every week. And today we're going to understand more about the calculation of that interest rate. Whenever you buy a car or a home, you always hear the term interest rate. If you hear the news often, you will listen to stats information about how much percent the population has increased, for example, over the past 10 years. So percent is a term that we always use in our lives. Let's get to the math then that we need to learn for the lesson, for our lives, and for the exam, of course. The formula that you see on the top, P equals to B times R, you will see that in your lesson. And this formula we are going to use a lot in calculating percent. Before we go ahead and do some calculations, I would like to go over the meaning of that formula. What does it stand for? P is the percentage. So the percent and the percentage are different. The percent is like when I say you have a 20% off. The 20% here is a percent. But if you want to calculate how many dollars you will be saving using a 20% off a purchase, for example, the amount of dollars you save, we call it a percentage, the part of the whole. So that part is the P, the percentage. The R here is the rate, which is the percent, the 20%, 25% is the R, the rate. And the base is the amount of money or time or amount of work, the total amount of work that this percent is applied to. So if you go to a store and you're trying to buy a dress for $100, that is the original price, and you have a 20% off. So the 20% off is the rate. The base is what the 20% will be applied to. So the base in that case is the $100. And then the percentage would be how many dollars you'll be saving using a 20% off of a $100 purchase. So I just give an example here on the screen. So whenever you have the recording of the webinar, you can go over the meaning of that, because later on when we have a word problem, we will have to learn how to extract what is P, what is B, and what is R in our formula in order to use it correctly. So again, saving 20% on $170 purchase. The B would be, the base would be the $170. The 20% is the percent, and the percentage is $34. That is the amount of savings that you've had using the 20% off of this amount. Okay, so how can we use the formula then? Now we know P equals to B times R, the percentage equals to the base times the rate. How can we use then this formula in an actual problem? Well, we need, before we go ahead and do a specific problem, I have this note in yellow in most of my slides. We need to always have in mind that we cannot use a percent as is in calculations. So at 20%, if I'm going to use that 20% in my calculations, I cannot use 20. I have to divide 20 over 100. And this is what the note here says. Always divide percent, which is the value of R from your question, divided by 100. And then you'll be able to multiply it, divide it, whatever you want to do in the formula to get your unknown value. So let's have an example. In a factory line for AA batteries, 0.01%. So the percent here is R. So I'm going to go ahead and label my values so I do not get lost when I am reading the question. So R is 0.01%. So the factory line for the AA batteries, the 0.01% of produced batteries were found defective. How many defective AA batteries were produced if this production line produces 215,750 AA batteries a day? So that number here is the total number of batteries that this line produces a day. So that tells me that this is the base. This is the B in the formula. So B equals to this amount. So this is B. So if I'm trying to use the formula, so what the question is asking basically is how many batteries are produced defective a day, given the information of R and B. So in our formula, P, the percentage, the number of batteries, equals to, so P equals to the base times the R. I have the base and I have the R from the question. So all I have to do is multiply the base times the rate, the percent. Now remember, I'm not going to use this value as is. I have to divide it by 100. So I need to switch this number to the decimal form of the percent. So remember, I'm going to divide 0.01 divided by 100. Whenever we divide a decimal by 100, we always do what? Shift or switch or move the decimal point twice to the left. 1, 2. So dividing the 0.01 over 100 will result in 0, 0, 1. So that is a 0 here. So that would be 3 zeros. So 0.0001, that would be the amount or the value of percent in decimal. And this is what we are going to use in the formula. We are not going to use that number as is. Again, this is the common mistake that I see in exams, that they just use that number, whatever it is, before dividing it by 100, which is wrong. So we have to switch that to the decimal value. So R now is 0.0001. And then I still have my B. I know the B, the base, is 215,750. I'm multiplying the B times the R because the formula says multiply the base times the rate. That will give you the percentage. Equals to, use your calculator. In those questions, I do not recommend that you do the multiplication or division by hand because we're not learning how to multiply here. We're learning how to find the percentage. So I need to focus on using the formula instead of focusing on how to manually multiply decimal number times a whole number. If you use your calculator, you're going to have that number times this number punched in on your calculator, and that will give you 21.57. Well, since we are talking about in terms of batteries, so I can round this number and say that approximately 22 AA batteries are produced defective in this factory line. So this is the percentage. How did I find the percentage? I simply applied the formula. Remember, the formula is a definition of a value, and it tells you how to get this value. In our case, in this question, the unknown is P, the percentage. The formula tells me to get the unknown P, multiply the base times the rate. So I'm just following the instructions of the formula. So simple. Any question on that one particular example? Remember, if you have questions, you can type in your questions in the questions box, and I always get a notification and I see who asked the question, what the question is, and I go ahead and answer the question if it's relevant to what we speak about at that time. Okay, let's look at another example then. Sometimes you don't have a word problem. Sometimes you have just numerical problems, and you're asked to find the percentage of each of the following. We have 6 4/7% of 820. Now, that section of the lesson, we know still that we are finding the P, the percentage. So this is the formula that we are going to use. P equals to base times the rate. Now, suppose that we do not know. Looking at the question itself, can we identify what is 820 and what is 6 4/7? Is it P, B, or R? So obviously 6 4/7% is the R, is the rate, it's the percent, because we have the percent sign. And then it's telling you this percent of a total number. The total number here is 820. So total number is always the base, the amount that the percent is applied to. So B in this case is 820. So it's asking to find the percentage, of course, because the formula has only 3 variables. I have B and an R, then P must be the unknown. Simply, I'm going to multiply base times rate. I know the values for both, so I need to just multiply them. But before I use the R in our calculations, I need to switch the 6 4/7% to the decimal form. I cannot use just the number 6 4/7, and that's it. That would be an incorrect way to do that. From the previous webinar, if you missed our first webinar, we went over how to change a fraction percent to a decimal form. So simply what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my calculator to figure out what is 6 4/7 with no percents now in decimal. and then I'm going to divide that over 100. Remember, I have to divide that over 100 to switch it to the decimal form of that percent, and then use the R in my calculation. So let's do that together for question number 1. R equals to 6 and 4 over 7%. I always like to rewrite the givens in the question so I don't have to guess, or if I look at the wrong number, I'm going to be ending up with the wrong answer. So I'm just, reconfirming myself that R in the question is 6 and 4 over 7%. Now I need to look at the fraction. And I'm going to use my calculator. And I'm going to use my calculator to switch 6 and 4 over 7 to a decimal. The way I'm going to do that, if you have a calculator, I'm going to punch in 4 over 7 equals 2. And it gives you the decimal form of the fraction part of that mixed number. So it is 0.571 and so on. And then add 6 to that because it's 6 and 4 over 7. So the decimal form of this fraction with no percents is 6.57%. We still have the percent sign because we did not divide over 100 yet. Remember, in the first webinar, we said whenever we want to get rid of the percent sign, we always divide over 100. So the percent sign is still there since we did not divide over 100 yet. Now, divide over 100 to be able to use the R value in our calculations. To divide over 100, simply switch the decimal value, shift it to the left twice. So the decimal value would be 0.0657 and no percent sign since we divided over 100. So that is the value I'm going to use in my formula. So P equals to the base B times R. And there is another practice that I've learned during the years of, learning math and teaching math, that I always rewrite the formula with my pen or pencil. When you write the formula, you kind of check if this is the right formula that you should be using or no. As you write the variables in each formula, you understand what the formula means. So that is a practice that I just thought to share with you. So B is 820 times the R now is the decimal form. And again, you can use the calculator to just multiply this number times that number. And it should give you at the end that the percentage 53.874. Any questions? Anything that was not clear? Okay, let's go to question number 2. Similar, 7.32% of 672. So we know the percent, the rate, the R. I'm going to change my colors here so you don't get confused with the workout of each question. So this is R and this is B, the base. Again, I'm going to use the formula P equals to base times R. I cannot use R as is. I need to switch it to the decimal form. So I'm going to now get faster since we know the basics now of using R. So R equals to, in the question, 7.32% equals to, I do not need to switch that to decimal because it's already in decimal, but I need to divide over 100 to get rid of the sign. So move the decimal point twice to the left, and that will give you the percent in decimal form, 0.0732. Use this number in the formula, then percentage equals to the base 672 times the rate in decimal. Multiply using your calculator, and that will give you 49.19 as your answer. So that it would be the percentage. That's it. So from looking at these two questions and the previous questions, I think it really comes down to identifying the givens. Is it R and P? Is it P and R? Is it B and P? I need to extract the information and assign the proper variables to them, and then use the formula properly. Let's go to the first question, the self-check question in the webinar. Again, these are not graded, not required. These are given to you to give you an idea if you have understood the concept on this section of the webinar properly, or you need maybe to go back and read the lesson and do some practice questions just to understand that concept more. So here's the question. I'm going to change my screen and I'm going to give you the same exact question with those answer choices, but this time you'll be able to pick or choose the one correct answer. Here you go. Okay, so we need to in this question to read it carefully, because sometimes the question is asking about the percentage, but the percentage of what? So let's read the question. In the Eagles High School, 40% of students population are males. If there are a total of, what I'm understanding, 1,580 students attend the school, how many students are females? How many students are females? So now this question is a trick question. So it's asking about the percentage, but not the percentage of the males, the percentage of the females. So what I can do that question two ways. Either I calculate the percentage of males and then subtract that from the total number of students that go to the school, and that will give me the percentage of the females, or say in my mind, well, 40% of males, that means 60% of females. Altogether will give me 100%. So now my R is not 40, it's R equals to 0.66, 0.6, since we are looking for the percentage of females, and that is the B. Then P equals to B times R. B in that case is the total number of students, 1580, times the rate is no longer 40%, it's 60%. So times 0.6, just multiply, and that will give you the number of female students that go to the school. So the correct answer is going to be A. So when you read the question, read it carefully. Expect something like that in the exam. That's something maybe tricky, or it seems that from the first sentence they're going to ask about the percentage of males, but actually the question is asking for the percentage of females. Any question? Anything that was not clear on that problem? Okay, let's go to the next section of the lesson. Now, if you see on the top, the formula has changed. It's not P equals to B times R. It's the B, the base, equals to the percentage over the rate. Now, when should I change that formula? Well, the formula that we have been using so far, P equals to B times R, is the same as this formula. It's just a rewritten format of the formula, but it says the same thing. The only difference is this formula was looking for a percentage as an unknown, knowing the base and the rate, but this formula have the base as the unknown, but we know the percentage and the rate. That's it. So now you have two ways to remember that, either to memorize saying that whenever I need the P, then multiply B times R. Whenever I need the B, then divide P over R. Or you can do a little bit of algebra, just a simple algebra steps to kind of conclude the formula depending on what's known and what's unknown. To do that, I just want to show you the algebra way. Maybe you're comfortable with that other than, memorizing the formula. I don't like to memorize lots of formulas. So if I'm going to start with the first formula that we have been using, P equals to B times R. Okay. Now in algebra, you need to isolate the unknown. In our case, if our question having the base as the unknown, then we need to isolate the variable, isolate the B in one side alone, in one side. To do that, I need to reverse the operations that is on the same side to my unknown. So the B was multiplied times R, then do the opposite, divide over R. Do the same thing on the other side, divide over the R. Now R over R is a 1 that's canceled out. Then the formula basically says P over R equals to the B. Or I can just rewrite that the way that we're used to, the unknown variable to the left equals to everything else on the right. And this is why this is the formula for the B. You can start out with the first formula and work your way to find the B equals to what, or just memorize. Or if your exam is an open book exam, you can go back to your lesson, whatever you like. I just give you all the options and you can choose whatever make you feel confident and comfortable. Again, in this formula, if you look, R is being used in calculations. So again, we will have to keep changing the R to decimal form. So this is the biggest mistake I see in students' work. And I need to repeat that over and over again because you may understand the formula, do good calculations, but just forget to change the R to the decimal form, and that will get you to the incorrect answer, and probably that one incorrect answer would be part of the given answer choices. And then when you choose it, you will think that, yeah, I got the answer, then I got that question right. And then you will find out later it's not right. Let's read the example and try to extract the information and understand why we assigned certain variables to those values. At a science museum, 215 fossils contributing to about 10.3%. Okay, so we have two numbers. So 215 contributing to about 10.3%. So obviously, this is the R. The question is saying that the rate, the percent of the fossils is 215 fossils. So that must be the percentage. So those 10.3% are the 215. So that what makes us think that this is not the B, it's the P. Okay, so that number of fossils contributing to that percent of the museum's fossils collection were brought from the continent of Africa. Approximately how many fossils does the museum own in all? There is another clue, in all, that tells us that the unknown is the base. The base is the original amount that the percent is applied to. So that is another clue that 215 is the P, and of course the 10.3% is the R. Let's write the formula. So we know that we are having the B as the unknown, then B equals to P over R. Cannot use the R as is, as mentioned in the question. I have to convert that to the decimal form. R equals to 10.3%. I need to divide it over 100, then switch or shift the decimal point twice to the left. So the decimal form is going to be 0.103 with no percent sign. This is the R I'm going to use in my formula. Simply divide. P is 215. This is how many fossils they brought from Africa over the rate, over the percent, 0.103. That will give you the total number of fossils that this museum owns. So you're going to divide 215 over the decimal number. You can use your calculator. And then the final answer would be 2,087.37. Since we're talking about fossils, I would round this number to saying that approximately the museum owns 2,087 fossils. That's it. Any question? Anything that was not clear? Okay, let's move on to the next set of problems. We're going to use the same formula, but let's see the questions first and then confirm that this is the formula that we are going to use. So find the base of each the following. 27 is 65% of what? So it seems that this is the rate, and this is how much the rate is in terms of units, how many dollars or how many persons or how many batteries. So that's for that reason, I'm going to decide that this is the P and this is the R. And it says what is the base. So that tells me that yes, I'm going to use this formula as B equals to P over R. I have everything there except the R. I just need to tweak it a little bit for the decimal form of that percent. So I'm going to divide 65 over 100. And that will give me 0.65. This is I'm going to use in the formula. So I'm going to divide P is 27 over 0.65. And then that will give you the base, the original amount that this 65% was applied to and was found to be 27. And it is 41.538. If you want to round, you can say it as 41.54. Remember, if that number is 5 or greater, it will add a 1 to the previous number. So you can write your answer as this or that. Question 253 is 1.07% of what? Again, it's asking for the base. We have the R and the P. Base equals to P over R equals to, the P is 53. And the rate here would be in decimal form 0.0107. Divide, and that will give you the answer, the base, that will be 4,953.27. That's it. Questions? Okay, let's move on to a question. A bakery place ends up wasting 103 leftover pastries a day, which contribute to 7% of the total pastry baked on a single day. Approximately how many pastries does the place bake a day? Okay, so we need to determine what is that question is asking for. It's asking for how many pastries does the place bake in a day. It's asking for the total number of baked goods on one day. So it's asking for the base. Base equals 2. Now, the 103 is equivalent to the 7%. So that is the P, the percentage, and this obviously the R. So I have P over R, and I know the values for. Now, I'm going to leave you do the question. I was about to give you the answer. So I'm going to leave you to do the question, do the math here. And here you go. Remember that you have to change the R to something else. You cannot use 7 as 7. It's 7%. So it's not the same as using the number 7. So which one is the number of pastries that this place bake in one day? I'm just going to wait for another 10 seconds and then go over the answer with you. Okay, let's do the problem together then. Okay, so again, we were here B equals to P over R. P is 103 and R is 7%. 7% is 7, and then you know the decimal point for a whole number is always at the end of the number. Do that twice to the left, 1, 2. So the decimal point will be here, and then 0 will be there. So the 7% is actually equivalent to 0.07. So divide 0.07, and when you divide 103 over that decimal number, 103 over that decimal number will give you the 1,471 pastries. So that bakery baked that number of baked goods and discard 103 of them, and that contributes to 7% of the total production a day. So I'm not sure why you did this, get the 721 or the 1,210, which is, I appreciate that you shared your answers, but it's a good opportunity to look into what did you do wrong in your calculations that you ended up with the incorrect answer. And this is how we learn. Nobody is here to judge you or to tell you how bad your questions or answers are. We are learning. So you can get the recording, compare your work out with that question with what you see on the screen, and see why you did get the incorrect answer, because probably some question like that would be in the exam. Probably in real life you will have to find the answer for a similar problem. So it's good to know where we need to correct ourselves. Okay, let's look at another kind of questions. Now the formula up there is changed again. R equals to P over B. So in that case, R is the unknown, and then percentage and base are given. And again, you can just memorize that. You can refer back to that in your lesson whenever you're doing the exam, if your exam is an open book exam, or you can start out with the original formula and do some algebra to conclude what would be R equals to. So the first one that we did, P equals to B over R. I need R. Isolate R. Divide over B and divide over B. That's gone. Then R equals to P over B. So this is what I got from that simple algebra, or just, as I said, just memorize. Now, before we go over the question, on the other two cases that we had to include the R, the rate, the percent in our calculations, we had to switch it to the decimal form. So we had to divide the R in the decimal form. Well, in that case, in here, when you are trying to find the R as your answer, the rate, you need at the end to multiply the number, the decimal that you get from dividing P over B, you have to multiply that times 100. So you're able to display the sign percent beside your answer. Okay, let's read the question and see what I mean by that. Tina has purchased an outfit for her sister's baby shower party. She should have paid $137 before using a coupon that saved her $34.25. How much discount did Tina receive on her purchase? So we know the base. We know that the tag price, the original price, is the B. We know that she saved P, which is 34.25, so that is P. Now we need the R, the rate. The formula says divide percentage over base. It should give you the rate in decimal form. So let's do that. P is 34.25. The base is 137. Divide that using your calculator, and that will give you 0.25. If you talk to your friend and say, well, I got a 0.25 discount on my shirt, they're not going to probably understand what you're talking about. But you need to multiply that times 100 to say, well, I got a 25% discount on my shirt. So when you multiply a decimal times 100, you do the opposite. You shift the decimal point twice to the right, 1, 2, and that would be here. And since that would be a whole number, the decimal point will not going to be written. It's understood that the decimal point is here, but we just don't write it. So 25% is equivalent to 0.25. This is the common way that we say or represent discounts. So that's why you have to multiply the 100 times your decimal answer. Questions? Anything that doesn't make sense? Okay, let's move on to other questions. Find the percent or rate of each of the following. Be careful that when you in your head mention the word percent, you may assign the P to the rate. Always in the formula, R is the percent. The percentage is the P. So be careful of that little mistake that may mess up the calculation. So find the percent, and it's asking you 32 of 1,125 is what? So the 32 is the part of a whole. So the part is the percentage, and the whole is the B, the base. We're trying to find the percent. R equals to P over B equals to, the percentage is 32. Divide that over the base, 1125. Use your calculator. You will get a decimal answer, 0.028. That's not the final answer. It's the correct answer, but it's not going to represent what we're looking for. We're looking for a percent. So multiply this decimal times 100. So move the decimal point 1, 2. Then your answer is 2.8%. Last question on that screen. 15 and 5/7 of 29 is what in percent? Again, P is this mixed number. 29 is the B, is the total number of units. Then R again is R equals to P over B equals to, the percent is 15 and 5 over 7. Well, the way I prefer to do that is not to deal with fractions a lot. So I need to switch, just to make it easy on myself, I'm going to switch 15 and 5/7 to the decimal form. Again, I'm not going to go over how to do that manually with no calculators, because again, we're trying to figure out the percent, we're not studying fractions. So to do that, to switch a mixed number like 15 and 5 or 7 to decimal form using a calculator, you want to punch in the fraction first. 5 over 7, enter, or equals to. It will give you 0.714 and so on. Plus 15, because when you read that mixed number, it's 15 and 5/7. So you have to add 15 to that decimal. So hit enter, and that will give you the 15.714 as the decimal equivalent of this mixed number, 15.714. Okay, so that is the P. So I can use that in my calculations. So I'm going to do 15.714 over the base is 29. Divide, it will give you the decimal form of the percent, which is 0.542. Multiply times 100, so that will be switched to the right one, 2. Then your final answer is 54.2%. Any question? Okay, let's move on to the next slide. A question. Todd plans to consume a total of 2,700 calories daily, with 945 calories coming from the protein. What percent will protein contribute to Todd's caloric intake? Okay, so what is the B? What is the P? What are we trying to calculate here? I'm going to leave you do that question entirely by yourself. And remember, it's do not get discouraged. If you get it wrong, it's okay. That is the purpose of this webinar. Here's the question, and here's the answers. I'm going to wait for another 10 seconds for everyone to have a chance to plug in their answers. Okay, thanks for everyone that participates in the webinar. That it means a lot to me as a teacher, that there is a communication between me, myself, and the students, even though that we do not see each other. So thank you for taking that time to do the question, think about the question, and choose your answers. So let's do the question together then. So from reading the question, when it comes to exams or real life situations, we know that this part of the lesson is going to ask you for the R, the rate. But let's read the question and try to figure out ourselves what the question is asking us for and what the question gives us as knowns. So Todd plans to consume a total of. So total here is the base. So the B is the 2,700 calories, with 945 calories coming from protein. So that part of the whole, then the part is the percentage. What percent? It's very obvious. It's asking for the R, rate. So we're gonna rewrite our formula, P over B. P is the 945 over the B, the base, the total number of calories, 2,700, divide, and that will give you a decimal answer. Multiply times 100 to display the sign, the percent sign, so that is 35% of his calories will come from protein. So the answer is D. The answer here is D. Questions? Okay. Let's move on to a different kind of topic. How can we calculate the percent increase or decrease in two numbers? You have a number that increased from this to that. What is the percent of increase? So sometimes that is a confusing topic, but we'll try together to minimize that topic to main ideas, and we can apply that to our questions and understand it more. Let's read the note above because that will summarize the steps, and then we can do the steps that we read later on that question. To find the percent increase or decrease between an initial and an end value, because it has to be an initial value and an end value. Either the value was small and got bigger, increased, or the initial value was a big value and decreased to a smaller value. So that's why we have an initial and end value. Those terms, initial and end values, are not terms that you're going to find in your lessons. I just chose to include them in my webinars to describe the two values that we are comparing or trying to do the calculations on. Step number one, find the difference between the initial and the end values. If the two values, one was big and then got smaller, find the difference. Or the other way around. If it was a smaller and got bigger, then you want to find the difference as well. Number two, divide the difference that you calculate in step one over the initial value. And then, as you know, to display the percent sign, you have to multiply your answer times 100. So you can represent that in percent. Let's do the steps here on that question. Try to extract the information and try to determine the initial value and the end value. In 1990, the national average dollar per gallon price for gasoline was $1.30, while in 2017 it went up to $2.42. What is the percent increase? What is the percent increase in average gas price? Round your answer to the nearest 0.1%. And those information were brought from resources I'm going to share at the end of my webinar. That's why you have the little one here. So what is the initial value? The initial value was the price of the gas, or the dollar per gallon price back in 1990. So I can summarize my problem, and that's what I always like to do. When I have a word problem, I want to rephrase things in a sort of a summary in front of me with pen and paper, so I can just, by looking at those few lines, I know what the problem talks about. So initial value in 1990, initial, and that was the value 1.30. The end value came from the year 2017, and that is the end value, and it is 2.42. Okay. Step one, find the difference. So we always gonna subtract the smaller number from the bigger number. No matter if you are finding the percent increase or percent decrease, you always have to do the bigger minus the smaller. So the difference equals to 2.42 minus the 1.30. Use your calculator, or you can do that by hand. It's a simple subtraction problem. So the difference is $1.10. So the gas prices was increased by $1.10 over the years from 1990 to 2019. I'm sorry, 17. Then that's step one. Step two, divide. Divide what? The difference, so divide. So I'm going to divide the difference, which is 1.10, divided by the initial value. I want to compare the difference between the initial value of the price of gas in 1990 to determine how much percent of an increase that was in 2017. So divide that by the initial value. From the summary, I know that the initial value is 1.30. Divide using a calculator, and that will give you 0.8462. We're looking for the percent increase. So I need to represent my answer not in decimal. I need to multiply times 100. So 1, 2. So the percent increase is 84.6%. So compared by the initial value, 84.6% of that price, add that to this. That will give you the current prices, or the prices for last year for gas. This is what that means. Any question on that? Any question on the steps, or why did we do those steps in that order or with those numbers? Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Express your answers to the following questions to the nearest 0.01%. So the first question is 107 is what percent more than 39? So those are the kind of questions that confuse students a lot. 107 is what percent more than 39? What is the initial value? Well, the initial value here is 39, not because 39 was the smaller value, but from reading the question, we know that there was an increase. So it began with a smaller number, and then there was an increase, and it went up to 107. So that's why in our mind, the initial value is the 39, and the end value, since we're asking the percent increase, is going to be 107. Step 1, the difference. So you're going to do 107 minus 39 will give you the difference in units, not percent. So subtract, and that will give you 68. Number 2, divide the difference over the initial value. The initial value is 39, equals to divide 68 over 39, and that will give you 1.74358. Now multiply that times 100 to display that in percent. So that will make this decimal point 1, 2 to the right. So it's going to be 174.358%. The answer is asking you to round your answer. So you need to find the nearest 100th percent. So you need to stop at that digit here. Since I have an 8 after the 5, so that would make me write the answer as 174.36%. We're going to round up the 5 to 6 because we have a number that is a 5 or more after the 5. So that would be the answer. So I can rephrase the answer saying that 107 is 174.3% more than 39. Questions? Okay, number 2, 178 is what percent less than 305? Okay, so what is the initial value? Well, in my mind, it's asking me that at one point it was a 305, it went down, it went less to 178. So the initial value in this case, I'm going to change the color. The initial value in this case, the initial value is the 305, which got decreased by a certain amount of units to the end value, which is 178. Okay, so what is the percent decrease? 1, find the difference. The difference will be, of course, 305 minus 178, and that will give you 127. 2, divide. Divide the difference, 127, divided by the initial value, 305. That will give you the answer in decimals, 0.416393. Multiply times 100, 1, 2. So that would be 41.6393%. Round. So I'm going to stop at this digit. So since there's a 9, I'm going to make it 41.64%. So I can rephrase my answer saying 178 is 41.64% less than 305. This is what the answer means. Questions? Okay, let's look at a question. In November 2013, the price of one Bitcoin. Bitcoins, by the way, is a fairly new international currency that people now buy, and it increases every year, the value of it, so then they can sell it later on and make a profit of the difference. So the price of the one Bitcoin in 2013 was $1,242. In December 2017, one Bitcoin value raised to $13,800. These are real numbers, by the way. What is the percent increase in the Bitcoin value? So you need to determine the initial value, the end value, and the percent of the increase. I'm going to leave you do that question. You can do that together after you're done sharing your answers. And here you go. And I think answer B is not displayed correctly. So answer B is 91.38%. The C and D are just it's just a typo there. So number A is 304, B is 91, C 477, and D is 1011 with the decimals. And just ignore the rest of the line on answer B. I'm sorry for that. I'm going to wait for another 10 to 15 seconds for everyone to have a chance to share their answers. Okay, let's do the question together then. So it is similar to what we have been doing so far in the percent increase or decrease. The only thing that you need to figure out is initial value. Since I'm asking about the percent increase, then the initial value would be the lower value. So 1,242. The end value, of course, would be the $13,800. To find that, I need to find the difference. So the difference would be, after you subtract, it's going to give you $12,558, and then divide the difference that you found by subtraction over the end value, sorry, the initial value. So the initial value was 1242. Do the division, it will give you the answer as decimal 10.1111, and then multiply times 100 to represent your answer in percent, 1, 2. So your answer in percent would be 1,011.11%, and that would be answer D. And this is the percent increase in the Bitcoin value. Questions? Everyone got that question correctly. Good job. Okay, let's do the last section of this lesson. I'm over time and I appreciate your attendance even after the hour. To increase or decrease an initial value by a percent. So now we're going to do the other way around. So in the past, we had the initial value, the end value, find out the percent increase or decrease. Now we have a value and you're asked to add or subtract a certain percent from that initial value to find the end value. To do that, you're going to do two steps. Calculate the percentage, P equals to B times R, remember? And then add or subtract the percentage you found to the initial value to get to the end value. It makes sense, right? Let's do an example. The population of Turkey, not the bird, it's the country. The population of Turkey in 2017 was 232.69%. And that is more than its population back in 1955. How much was the population of Turkey in 2017 if it was 24,270,585 in 1955? So again, let's summarize. What is the initial value? So now we know that there has been an increase. So it was some kind of a number in 1955. The increase was 232.96% more than the population. So I need to figure out what is the end population in 2017. So again, let's graph that. So I have the population in 1955. That is the group of people there. Okay. And then there has been an increase. It's the percent, 232.96%. And it brought us to the end. So this is the end, this is the initial, and this is 2017. What I need to do, apply this percent to the base, which is the 24 million. Find the percentage, which is the percentage of increase, add this to this number to get you to the end population in 2017. This is the frame of our work. So let's do that in math. So I'm going to use the old formula that we have been using in the beginning. P, the percentage, equals to B times R. In this case, the B is the population back in 1955, so which is the huge number there, 585 times the rate. Remember with the R, we had to switch it to the decimal value. So since the R here is 232.69, I need to divide over 100, 1, 2. So the decimal value of this percent is 2.3269. Multiply, that will give you the increase. It's not going to give you the end population. It's going to give you the increase. So that is 56307 and then 757. So they have increased 56 million and 3,757 over the course of the years between 1955 and 2017. The end population would be the initial plus the increase, right? Makes sense. So initial is the 24 million and so on, plus the 56 million and so on. So the end population in 2017 is 80,578,342 people lived in Turkey in 2017. Any question? Anything that didn't make sense? Okay. Let's then do 2 more problems, and then we're going to do the last self-check, and that will be it for the webinar. Express your answers to the following questions. 27% more than 1,198. Okay, we know that 27% is the R, but this is not the percent. This is the increase, the percent increase to an initial value. The initial value is 1,198. How do I find the end value? The same as we did with the population question. P equals to, find the percentage increase equals to B times R. The base is 1198, it's the initial value, times the R. The rate is not 27, it's 0.27. And then multiply will give you the increase, 323.46. That's not the final answer. Add the initial value plus the increase, and that will give you the end value. So it's 1521.5, and that is the answer. So if you read the sentence again, 27% more than 1,198 is 1,521.5. So that is the end, this is the initial, and this is the percent increase. The same thing, just the decrease. 54% less than 26. 26 would be what we're going to apply the rate on. So it is P equals to B times R equals to, the base is 26 times the R is not 54, it's 0.54. And then you'll find the decrease, 14.04, and then do the subtraction because I'm saying less than. So I have the end value as a 26, so the initial value, I'm going to go backwards. So I'm going to add, I'm going to do the 26 minus, I have to subtract 14.04, and that will give me the answer. So the answer would be, I'm going to punch that on the calculator real fast. So 26 minus 14.04, which is the decrease, equals to 11.96. So let's read that. 54% less than 26 is 11.96. Any question? Anything that didn't make sense? Okay, one last question for you to do, and then I'm going to conclude my webinar. A carpet and flooring company was able to increase its profit from $540,000 in 2015 to 7.5% more the following year. What was the company's profit in 2016? Okay, I'm going to leave you to think about the question. Here you go. Okay, let's do the question together. So let's think about the question, the knowns and the unknowns, and what exactly the question is asking for. So back in 2015, the profit was the amount, and then there was a percent increase. So the percent will be applied to this number, and then add the increase to that number, and that will give us the end profit in 2016. So what we're going to do is P equals to B times R equals to B is the base. The base that we are applying the percent about or on is 540 and 3 zeros times R is not 7.5, it's a 0.075 equals to, now multiply, that will give you the increase in dollars. $40,500 was the increase. That's not the final answer. Add the 40,000 to the initial profit. So 540 plus the 4,000, the 40,500, and that will give you the end profit in 2016. If you add, it's going to be 580 and $500, and that would be answer C. Questions? Anything that didn't make sense in that topic of the increase or decrease percent? Okay, well, let's then conclude the webinar. These are my references for the factual information I used to make up my problems, if you want to check that. And we just went over how to calculate the percentage, the base, the rate using the formula P equals to B times R. We did study how to find or calculate the increase or decrease percent, or the percent of decrease or increase. How to study for the exam. Of course, you want to read your unit. You want to read your lessons. You want to do the discover more questions or practice questions within your lessons. If you cannot do all of them, do at least half of them. If you feel that you're not comfortable enough on the topic, then do all of them. You can rewatch the webinar. You're going to get the recorded webinar in a couple of hours today. You can use the answer key for the discover more questions or the practice questions. They are provided for you in a purpose to use them to self-assess yourself. An additional resource, it's an outside resource, not with Penn, khanacademy.org. If you log into that, if you go to that website, on the top left, you're going to click on subjects, click on pre-algebra, and choose the topic ratios, rates, and proportions. And then the two topics corresponding to this webinar are percent problems and also the percent word problems. If you want more help from our staff, you can call. You can schedule an appointment using that link. You can text message. If you want an academic help, then you want to type in learn in your text message, or you can email or chat. Some of you do not know where to go for the email or chat. So here is the different kind of accounts that you may have with Penn. This account, you need to follow the instructions, and at the end you will have this form to fill out, and this is the email form that gets sent out to our staff. Or if you have your portal looks like this, you want to go to the help center and follow the instructions, you're going to end up with the same form to send us a question through email. Or you can chat. You can chat, and you can chat here if you have a brief question. Thank you for everyone for staying over time. Thanks for your attention and attendance. And there is a 3-question survey. If you want to give me a feedback on how I did during the webinar, I'll be thankful. Otherwise, good luck with the exam. Study hard. Use all of the resources available, and definitely communicate your questions if you have any to myself or any of the teacher assistants later on if you have any other questions. Good luck in the exam. If you have any questions now, I'm going to wait for about 10 to 15 seconds. If you have questions, type them in the questions box. I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, it seems that everyone is good. So good luck in the exam, and you'll do great. Thank you.